So far we've looked at two of our main macroeconomic targets. Topic 1, economic growth. Topic 2 was inflation. What I want to cover in this topic is unemployment. So our other macroeconomic target is to achieve low unemployment in the economy. Let's first of all talk about a definition of unemployment. Unemployment is people who are not working in the economy but are actively seeking work. We have to include that in the definition, because if people such as students, the elderly who are retired, and young children are considered, these people are not working but they're not unemployed because they're not actively seeking work. We've got two different ways of measuring unemployment in the country. We can use the claimant account approach, the claimant count, or we can use something we call the labour force survey. Let's take the labour force survey first of all. This is a survey which will include everybody that is unemployed. It will take a random sample of people across the country, and from that calculate how many people are unemployed in the economy. Claimant count, this one's a bit different. This will measure the number of people who are in receipt of job seekers allowance, so the number of people that are claiming unemployment benefits in effect. And the claimant count will show a much lower number than the labour force survey. This is because some people who are unemployed do not claim unemployment benefits. This could be due to they don't want to be associated with being unemployed, they don't like the stigma attached to claiming job seekers allowance, or maybe they're ineligible. Maybe a partner earns too much money, or they've got too much in savings. Either way, they will not be classed as unemployed. Let's think now about different types of unemployment. You've got to be aware of the following types of unemployment. We've got frictional, structural, and cyclical. These are the three main types of unemployment that we talk about in economics. There are more which we'll talk about in a minute. Frictional is people who are between posts. This is people who've maybe finished one position, they're waiting for another job to start. They finished a certain qualification and they've got time till their job starts, or someone has resigned from one post, has another one lined up. That person is frictionally unemployed. So for example, my sister completed her teacher training course in May of last year. Her new job didn't start until September. So those 3 months in between her finishing her qualification and starting her job, she was frictionally unemployed. Structural unemployment. This is created by a skills mismatch. This occurs when somebody is unemployed and lacks the skills to gain employment in that particular area. This occurred in big numbers in Britain during the 1960s, 70s and 80s. Many UK manufacturing industries moved abroad, so shipbuilding for example, coal mining. When these industries moved abroad, the people that worked there, that's all they'd ever done. So the problem they had was they didn't have the skills to gain employment in the current economy. Cyclical unemployment. This one is linked to the economic cycle. It normally occurs when demand in the economy is low. So when we're in a recession or we're in a trough on our economic cycle, we know we have low consumer spending, we have low aggregate demand in the economy. When demand is low, businesses will not need that many staff. If demand is low for goods and services, businesses produce low levels of goods and services. Shops need fewer shop assistants. This all creates negative multipliers. These people are therefore unemployed. Other types of unemployment you need to be aware of. Technological. Voluntary / involuntary. Classical. And the final one, seasonal. Technological first of all. It sounds common sense when I put this word down, but it's linked to the level of technology or capital in the economy. We as a rich economy spend a lot of money on research and development, improving our capital. What we often find is this capital will eventually take the place of workers. So for example, car production lines used to include hundreds of members of staff doing different jobs down the production line. As time has gone on, these people have been replaced by machines. They're therefore technologically unemployed. Voluntary slash involuntary. It's what it says really. Involuntary, when people would like to work, but they cannot find employment. Voluntary, people who simply just choose to be unemployed. Big problem amongst young people at the moment. Haven't got the motivation to go and get a job. In big numbers, this occurs in this country. Therefore, they're voluntary unemployed. Classical unemployment. This is linked to the wage rate. We know, if I was to graph this, we've got wages on the vertical axis, we've got quantity on the horizontal axis. We've got the supply of labour, demand for labour. So we have no unemployment. Excuse the diagram here. At this point here, so when wage rate is W1, the number of people looking for work matches the number of people, the number of jobs that are available. So supply of labour matches demand of labour. If the wage rate was above this point, more people would want to work, higher wages, more profits, more wages, etc. But the demand for labour will be low because it's very expensive to employ people. So classical unemployment, because when the wage rate is too high in the economy, wage rates needs to fall to clear unemployment. Seasonal unemployment. Think about a calendar. So over the course of the year, some people will not have work for certain times a year. Seaside towns, for example, many of the shops, the restaurants, the cafes, the arcades, the fairgrounds will only open up during the busy summer months. The rest of the year they're closed down. That means the staff that work there might only be employed by them for several months a year. Other types of seasonal work. Farming. Some products are only harvested at certain times of the year. These people, therefore, that pick these products or this field on harvests, gain employment during the harvest seasons, but when they're over, those people again lose their jobs. Let's think now about the benefits of unemployment. I beg your pardon. Let's talk first of all about the drawbacks of unemployment. So one big problem we've got is it's inefficient. We know that in every economy we have certain factors of production: land, labour, capital and enterprise. If we have some people not working, they're not producing goods and services, so the output of the economy is lower than what it could be. In other words, if I was to draw a PPB, the actual is lower than the potential. It makes solving our economic problem that bit more difficult. Now, other drawbacks to it. You've got the impact on the budget. If people are unemployed, they're not paying income tax. That will mean ultimately there is less money for supply side policies. The government have less funds available to invest in education, healthcare, transport infrastructure in the country. So government spending will be impacted. If the government wants to maintain that government spending, it's likely they'll have a budget deficit because taxation receipts will start to fall. Now, we've also got an opportunity costing to this. As people are unemployed, rather than using government spending to fund supply side policies, that money now has to be spent on funding unemployment benefits, helping those people retrain to get more work in the economy. We've got three really big drawbacks. Let's take one more. Hysteresis. This is where unemployment creates unemployment. Think about it logically. If we've got high unemployment in the economy, there'll be low demand, low consumption. As demand falls, we get negative signals about the economy. More people start to be concerned about their jobs. Those people therefore become savers rather than consumers. Consumption falls, we have negative multiplier effects, and more people therefore lose their jobs. Benefits though, are there any benefits to unemployment? Well, potentially yes. The biggest one is linked to the time it creates. If people are unemployed, the argument is that it gives people time to retrain, gain new qualifications in the economy. This might help them get better jobs in the future. Some unemployment as well does help reduce inflation. A higher supply of labour means that you've got many people chasing after few jobs. This will impact negative on wages. Wage rates will start to fall. As wage demands go down, consumption starts to fall, AD will fall. This might reduce inflation problems in the economy. Could be very, very useful at a boom then, couldn't it? Another reason why inflation will fall. As wages go down, business costs start to fall. Businesses suddenly can produce things at a cheaper price. So cost push inflation is falling. Cheaper to make things in the economy. This might boost our international competitiveness. And the very last part of this topic is where we introduce the Phillips curve. I want to graph the relationship between inflation and unemployment. Horizontal axis measures the unemployment rate, the percent of people who are unemployed. Vertical, inflation rate, so the rate at which prices are growing. That zero there would show 0% inflation. Anything below zero shows deflation in the economy. Now what we'd expect if we were at point X, we'd have very high, we'd see we've got very high unemployment. When unemployment's very high, we'd expect deflation. Prices will start to fall because consumption will be low and wage rates will start to fall. However, as unemployment starts to fall, we'll see inflation will start to pick up. Eventually, it becomes very steep. That is because at this point here, there are very few people unemployed. It becomes very difficult for businesses to find the right workers. Wage rates inflate, AD increases, consumption increases, we get very high inflation. So that's our relationship between inflation and unemployment. Clearly, too low employment will create very high inflation. Deflation, on the other hand, shows that we're in a situation where we've got very high unemployment. The problem with this basic Phillips curve is, though, that in the 1970s, this theory was seen not to work. So this relationship didn't happen. What we actually found was in the 1970s that inflation rose with unemployment. We had this positive relationship. Unemployment was growing, but inflation was increasing as well. And this seemed to suggest that the Phillips curve was no longer a good representative model for our economy. What happened, though, was that the Phillips curve was adjusted. We looked at the expectations augmented Phillips curve. So again, we've got the same relationship. We have unemployment and we have inflation. What I'm going to draw this time is what we call the long run Phillips curve. This is the natural rate of unemployment in the economy. So what this shows is in the long run, there is no relationship between inflation and unemployment. In the short run, though, the relationship still exists. We've got a short run Phillips curve. The long run Phillips curve shows us the natural rate of unemployment, which is equal to voluntary and frictional unemployment in the economy. So let's think about what happens in the short run then. If we're at this point here, to get more people to work, wage rates have to increase. As wage rates increase, more people will go and gain employment in the economy. In the short run, people think they're better off. So they're getting paid a higher wage, therefore they're happier. However, when that person realises, so let's say for example wages went up by 5%, that person will eventually realise that their wages are no higher than they were previously. Because if wages increase by 5%, but if costs rise by 5% as well, that person will be no better off. So that person will decide, you know what, I'm not going to bother working again. So we have unemployment here, but this time inflation's at 5%. So again, if we want to get more people back to work, we have to increase wages again. Maybe they go up to 10% of their original level this time. But again, eventually price levels will catch up, which means those people will be no better off than they were previously and decide to be unemployed again. Back to that point there. Now what this is suggesting is that in the long run, it's impossible for unemployment to go below the long run Phillips curve. But what we can do is to actually shift the long run Phillips curves to the left. And we do this through supply side policies. So more spending on getting more people back into work, reducing frictional employment, voluntary employment, maybe lowering benefits, making it more difficult for people to claim certain benefits, might force more people to accept lower wage rates in the economy. What we can see here is then that classical unemployment would fall if we can shift the long run Phillips curve to the left.